Hi, I'm Don White, and this is God's Money. You know, it's interesting. I remember back in 2007 or 6, somewhere in that range, I had this lady come to see me, 80 years old. She was a widow. And she came to me and she said, Don, you know, I've got this house and we don't have any mortgage on it. And would it make sense for us to take out a loan against our house, and then I'd have extra money available and so forth, we can do other things with it. If in fact the value of your house were to drop and now you have this mortgage against it, which might be more than what the value of the house is, now what you're in a situation is that you might actually owe the bank money, or it's actually more money than what the house is even worth, and then you're constantly going to be in catch-up mode. And she just looked at that and she said, oh wow, you know, maybe that's yeah, you're probably right. And thankfully she didn't do it. Of course, as we all know, in 2008 and 9 we had the global recession, and the value of homes, just especially here in Florida, just plummeted. And the truth is, she would have been in very, very large trouble, but she wasn't. And there's a great verse in the book of Proverbs, in Proverbs 14. In fact, the next couple of weeks, I think I'm going to do a variety of different things just out of this particular chapter. But in Proverbs 14, the very first verse, it says this: the wise woman builds her house, but with her own hands the foolish one, tears hers down. With her own hands, the foolish one tears hers down. First of all, I think it's kind of interesting that it's talking about a woman here. Now, that's could be just generic, essentially. But the truth is, we need to be totally and completely cognizant of the fact that we can tear down our own house. And more often than not, we're the ones that are to blame. You know, it's interesting. In the book of Ecclesiastes, it says this. It says, everyone should live simply. And it is God's plan that you live simply. It's man's complex devices that create the problem. Our complexity, our wanting to do things, you know, creatively, is usually one of the biggest problems we have financially. Every single one of us, if we own a house, are looking at our home equity. That's the difference between what we owe on the house and what we think the house is worth. And I emphasize what we think the house is worth, because of course you don't know. It's not like a stock that trades on a stock market. The truth is that your house is only worth what somebody is willing to write you a check for. But let's just, for the sake of argument, say that we think our house is worth, say, $200,000, and we owe, say, $50,000 to the bank. That means we've got $150,000 worth of equity. And it looks good on your balance sheet, looks good on a financial statement, but the truth is, it's just the value of that house if you were in fact to sell it. And if you sold the house, you probably have to buy another house. You've got to live somewhere, right? So you're either going to have to buy another house or you're going to have to rent something. Either way, there's going to be an expense involved. So any money that's allocated towards your house, leave it there. Let that be the thing which allows you to have a roof over your head. That should be your first and foremost priority anyway, is to make sure you always keep a good shelter for your family. But more importantly, when you try to take the equity out of your house by adding either a line of credit or a second mortgage or whatever, what you're doing is you're doing exactly what this verse says the foolish person did. Maybe the best thing we can do is have 100% equity. In other words, no mortgage whatsoever. If we have no mortgages on our house whatsoever, that frees up more capital than anything else. Here's why. Because if you're not paying a payment on your house, in most people's cases, that's 20 to 30% of their income. Imagine a 20 to 30% increase in your pay. Can you imagine what you could do for the Lord, for example, if you had a 20% increase in pay, where you didn't have to worry about making that payment any longer? Now, this 80-year-old woman, she already had that situation. She was just thinking that she could be more creative with the money. She had been listening to some talk show, I'm sure, or reading some book, or maybe reading the newspaper. I don't know. Because it was very popular back in the very early 2000s to take the equity out of your house and buy another house and so forth. And that really is what I believe led to the global crisis. If in fact you have a home, keep it debt-free. Do everything you possibly can to make your home the place that is not subject to a mortgage. Why? Because at that point you've got some sort of a safety shield. You've got some sort of an ability to keep your income in check. If you can go debt-free on your home, I think that's just an amazing thing to do. I was talking with a friend of mine at church yesterday, and he did this very thing. He and his wife made a commitment that over the 5 years between the time that they were considering retirement and actually retiring, they were going to get 100% debt free, including their mortgage. And they came to our 5 Years to Freedom class, and we taught them exactly how to do that by snowballing their debt. And they did exactly that. He told me yesterday, he said, Don, you know, what you taught us to do caused me to be able to pay off our entire debt, including our mortgage, in 4.5 years. They were able to retire and have an income which really made some sense. In fact, they were able to cut their income, because when they went on retirement, of course, he wasn't earning the salary that he used to. Keep your house debt free. Leave the equity alone. You're going to be well served if you do. Hey, you guys have a great week. We'll see you next time. And remember, it's not your money, it's God's money.